at the end of the day, I agree morally, ethically with everything that Katniss did, and I would support her to my last breath. The challenge is that there's no legal justification that I can think of at all to justify it.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Doug Defends, the show where a real-life attorney talks about, hopefully, fake things. I am Billy Business. To my right, the game maker of this whole show, Mr. Doug Ridley. Mockingay's up.
Mockingay's up.
Today we are talking about...
I just committed treason.
You did? Well, it depends on where in the timeline.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. Today we're talking about the Hunger Games. We're actually going to be talking about Hunger Games, its sequels, Catching Fire, Mockingjay Part 1, Part 2, that whole saga of... we're not going to talk about the prequel because it was kind of terrible.
All right.
But yeah.
Plus, I didn't watch it, so
Yeah.
we'll. Plus, this is an encompassed story. It's got a beginning and an end, and it's easier for us to chat about.
I would say this is more in line with like I'm not talking like quality, but in terms of just like how the story progresses. This is kind of like a Lord of the Rings or Wicked. Think of it as one big story that they broke up into 4 different parts.
Yeah.
Because it all does flow together, and they all came out. Hunger Games came out in 2012, Catching Fire 2013, Mockingjay 2014, and Mockingjay Part 2 2015. For a couple years there, that was like my Thanksgiving tradition. Was I'd go see the new Hunger Games and then go to Thanksgiving dinner.
Right, because you were hungry.
It was the Hungry Games.
It's the
right?
Hungry Games.
Something very like the dichotomy of watching these people just like, I guess I'll put my name into this horrible battle royal for a piece of bread, and I'm like, I could go for some stuffing after this, man.
Right.
Yep.
I'm too full for pie.
Yeah. Very capitalistic of me. But
well, and maybe that explains why you're, sweater Billy vibe, because this is like a Thanksgiving kind of a...
We're in sweater weather, finally.
Yeah.
But I do think, talking about the Hunger Games... I just, we're going to get into the legal stuff. Obviously, we're not a review show. But before we do, just real quick, I want to know what you thought of the Hunger Games when it was coming out. So at the time, I was working for TV Guide Network, which would become Pop, which was a subsidiary of Lionsgate. And at that time, they would have these big Lionsgate company meetings, and they would do it at the Bruin Theater. And it was pretty cool. And I remember it was like July or August. It must have been July of 2011. And they're like, we have the Hunger Games coming out, and that's going to be a big thing. And they showed a teaser, but it was just the animatics. It was just storyboards of Katniss running in the forest. And then they handed out the books to every employee. They're like, this is going to be the big thing. And in me and my infinite wisdom, I thought, sure. Yeah, right. Little did I know. I think at that time, Hunger Games, it's a YA novel.
Yeah.
But I don't think this is YA. Like, you think YA at that time, you would think Divergent. You would think Twilight was like the big thing. I don't think this is anything like that at all.
Especially watching it now and checking it again with fresh eyes, because I remember going to I saw it in the theater, and my son was younger, and I remember going, and spoilers, some people die in the movie that's all about taking 24 people and whittling it down to one victor. So with some of those, especially younger character deaths, it wrecked my son. And my wife
How
and
old was he?
He was like 10.
Yeah,
but I mean, YA, that's not an inappropriate age range.
No,
but I mean, this was tough, and it also is a movie that we haven't rewatched a bunch of times.
Sure, yeah.
Like Mockingjay was amazing. Both parts of Mockingjay, I think, were great movies, but it's so dark and it's so real that I own the DVDs, or Blu-rays, but I haven't watched it since the theater.
Same.
And so there were tons of this that I didn't remember. I'm so glad that I watched before, we started our show today. But yeah, it was like, what if the empire happened and all we did was zoom in on one person's face the whole time?
Yeah.
And see the emotional turmoil from like one person the whole time. And kudos to her for carrying the whole thing.
It's heavy stuff. And that's why I say, like, I feel like, especially once you get to Mockingjay, like, we are kind of past the YA tropes of the love triangle. It's still kind of there, but it's like, that's not what this is about at all. This is about revolution. This is about freedom and rebellion. And a lot like Andor, I thought it was just so interesting when it's just like, we had been groomed by Star Wars where it's like rebels, good guys.
Right.
And we find out, through Andor, through Hunger Games, it's like, not always.
Yeah.
Not everyone has the same intentions.
Right.
And we're going to talk about that. So we're going to talk about a lot of that coming up about, District 13, the rebellion and everything with Snow. Let's give it just a very, very quick recap. If you haven't seen the Hunger Games story, or if it's been a while, you forgot. Basically, the premise is dystopian future. At some point, something must have happened, nuclear war, something. Everything in America was kind of districted into Panem. So there's the capital, and then there's outlying districts. There were 13, but then at some point there was a rebellion against the capital, and the capital squashed it. They got rid of 13, and in its place, what they ended up doing as a punishment essentially was, we forgive you all, but every year a boy and a girl between the ages, I believe it's 12 and 18, from every district are going to have to be tributes in something we call the Hunger Games, which is essentially a battle to the death.
Yes.
And they treat it as an honor, even though it is most definitely a punishment, a system of control. And if you are starving and you need more food, you can get it. But that means you have to put your kid's name into the drawing to be picked as the tribute more and more. When we start the Hunger Games, this is the 74th year they've been doing it. We see Katniss Everdeen. Her sister gets chosen, but Katniss volunteers herself to take her sister's place.
Prim! I volunteer! I volunteer as tribute.
I believe we have a volunteer.
Peeta Mellark is another boy from District 12 that goes with her. A lot happens, but the gist of it is that Katniss becomes this face of a rebellion once more against the Capitol. She becomes what they call the Mockingjay, which is a symbol against President Snow of the Capitol. And we find out that there is a rebellion forming, that District 13 wasn't completely destroyed. They went underground, and they're building rebellion, waiting for someone like Katniss to inspire everybody to rise up. So
that was pretty good.
It's a tough thing to summarize 4 movies in about a minute and a half.
I'm impressed.
So let's get right into this. Let's talk about Reaping Day. So Reaping Day is where people from the Capitol come, and basically it's a lottery. It's a drawing. They pick names out of the hat, and one boy, one girl, and that's who's going to the Hunger Games. And it's not like, well, they're the same age or anything. Like we see in one district, there's like a 8-year-old kid and a 17-year-old boy,
Right.
So it's like, it doesn't matter. It's supposed to be everyone for themselves. But I want to ask you about, this is tough because we are talking about this within the framework of what the Capitol's laws are.
Yeah.
So it's easy to be like, well, this is illegal. Well, no shit. But, like within the Capitol, these laws are not. But let's talk about the reaping. If you're 12 to 18, you don't have a choice.
Right.
You are in this lottery.
Right.
I'd assume it's like a draft.
Yeah. That's what I was thinking about, was that it's not the culture that they've created. It's not that different from a mandatory draft for the military.
Can you talk a little bit about like draft laws? What it's funny. Millennials, at least, or boys my age, probably remember on your, I believe it's 18th birthday, you get sent in the mail like a razor or some like, hey, you're 18, and you get sent a draft card in the mail.
Yeah.
So what are like the legalities around that? I know this is a different purpose, but just like it made me think of like, yeah, like I guess in some ways we still don't have a choice about, at least I don't know if it's boys and girls now or it's still just men.
It's boys and girls, and it's 18, and it's part of our citizen duties, like having to sit for jury duty. And there's a handful of different things that we as citizens have decided are our duties and our responsibilities as part of citizenship. So not that different than the way Panem has decided, if you're going to live in this area, if you're going to be a citizen, there are obligations, and the obligations are you're going to throw your kids, your kid is going to participate in the reaping. So I almost hate to say this because I feel like I'm tempting fate.
Sure.
But we haven't had a draft since Vietnam.
Yeah.
And I hope that we're not looking at anything like that in the future. But we live in a time where, our president is the most like President Snow out of any president that we've had in the history of arguably our country.
Right.
So much of the reaping is about punishing the people who had the audacity to rise up. Right?
It's symbolic, right?
Yeah.
And even the little video that they play
to
tell the audience,
the propaganda
essentially.
video.
But it's like, this is a sign of our generosity to
Right.
you. Like, we're not going to punish all of you. We're going to welcome you with open arms. All
Right.
we ask is that you give us two of your children,
Right.
out of all of them.
I mean, gosh,
How could we
it's only
be-
two little kids.
Yeah. And I think it's just so like, just kid, not people, not even.
Right.
It'd still be horrible with adults, but
Right.
like specifically children.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
And my wife has a really, really hard time. It's one of the reasons we haven't rewatched this a bunch of times. For a lot of movies and a lot of stories, kids in peril is kind of off the table.
Sure.
It's off limits to have kids in peril, or at least it was for a long time. For you and I growing up, kids in peril, maybe if it's Goonies or Stand By Me or something along
like
those lines.
Jurassic
But I mean,
Park,
they're not
maybe,
like
but-
killing kids.
No, it was always
And-
like dogs and kids.
Yeah.
You will always make it out
Right.
fine.
Now we have Hunger Games and we got John Wick, and dogs and kids are back on the table apparently. But the idea of, this is to remind you of the cost of rebellion. This is to remind you. And the idea also that the most well off of the districts have volunteered tributes. They train for years and years and years and years.
Right,
So it's not Prim and PETA. It is, it's American Gladiator
Sure, yeah,
or wrestling.
well, no, because wrestling. You're okay.
You have to be 18.
Well, here's the thing I wanted to ask you. Like, would you consider this kind of like, in a way, like forced labor? This seems like state-sponsored human trafficking, essentially.
It is, and it definitely feels like that. But when we try to start differentiating the last time we had a draft with the Hunger Games, I mean, the difference is we arguably didn't force our own kids to fight each other. Right. But were there kids that ended up being drafted that were freshly 18 and didn't want to go and their families didn't want them to go? Absolutely. That was a big part of so many of the protests around the draft for Vietnam. And then on top of it, you see a lot of people taking heat now because they found exceptions. You go back to World War II or the Korean War, it was a little bit more like Hunger Games vibe, where it was an honor to be drafted. It was an honor to serve your country. At least that was the that was the feeling then. And I think that's what Hunger Games, at least the capital, is trying to create, this sense of obligation and duty, where we see in the poorer districts, it's a whole lot more like what we saw in the Vietnam War for draft, where it's tears and it's trying to find ways around it. And in a
lot of ways too, it's like, Katniss was kind of, even though she was the oldest daughter, she was the provider for her family.
Right.
Gail didn't get picked, but it's like if Liam Hemsworth had been picked, like his family would be screwed. PETA kind of, like his family still had the bakery, but he was a big part. So it's like taking away livelihoods of these people that don't have very much.
Right.
Now, normally we save fan questions to the very end, but there's one fan question that I feel like is very relevant to this exact conversation. So I want to sprinkle it in now. So let's assume we're at the end of the Hunger Games. There's a new government put in. We're trying to sort out Panem, right? And we're looking back at everything that happened, right? Let's assume that there were trials, war trials. This question is, Katniss volunteers as tribute to save her sister. Let's say all the tributes had some sort of case against, like, you put me in this is,
Right. Against my will and all that. Yeah.
Do the ones that volunteered kind of waive their rights away? Because it's like, well, you didn't get picked. You just said you wanted to do it.
Yeah. And I think that would be consent. That would be volunteer. If the arguments for the other tributes were that I never wanted to do this and I was forced to do this, and then all of a sudden you had somebody saying I volunteer, it's not a lot different than District 1 and District 2, where they have these professional tributes that train their whole lives. So obviously it's not like Katniss volunteered for everything that happened to her necessarily.
Sure.
And I think that there is still some level of argument that I would make for her that the only reason she did it was to save her tiny little sister, who arguably is 12, right? Because
give or take,
it was her first year in the game. Nobody ever gets picked their first year.
Oh, that's right. You're right. You're right. Yeah.
And so, yeah. I mean, I think that she has less of an argument, but it's super complicated.
Right.
The other thing that I realize as we're talking, I think it's important for us to note, we're making some parallels with the draft, and we're talking about war, and we're talking about those sorts of things. You and I are both very grateful for our military, very grateful for the people that serve.
Absolutely.
So I don't ever want anybody watching the show to think we're disrespecting veterans or
Not
anything
at all.
along those lines.
No.
We're really just looking at a legal analysis of what are the legal differences between a draft versus what we saw as the reaping, and it's the closest real world parallel that we can draw. So
obviously, just the fact that one is clearly a punishment,
right? Well, it's designed to be a punishment,
punitive,
right? I mean, the best propaganda video they could possibly put together and create was, remember, we're doing this so that you know your place,
right?
I mean, even the best spin on it ever is,
it's almost like a religious thing. Like your kids are going to die for your sins, essentially, every year.
Yeah.
And then I don't know if this was always the plan or if it was because Snow had it out for Katniss. But then you look at the next year, the Quarter Quell, and it's like, well, now everyone that's won is basically going back. So we'll wipe out all the people that were victors.
Now. I know you probably didn't read all of the novels.
I did not. No.
I did.
Okay.
And it was a quick read.
Sure, yeah.
being YA novels, but they were enjoyable and an easy read, and it's very clear if you read the books that Suzanne Collins, who wrote them, intends that Quarter Quell was a reaction. I mean, they would have had something interesting to celebrate the 75th anniversary, but he wanted to kill Katniss. I mean, that's what was going on, and that was the reason. So, for sure.
Which ended up being the very last Hunger Games, the 75th one.
Right.
Yeah.
Unless you count I mean, there is a discussion, right, that they recreated a Hunger Games in the damn Capitol.
Yeah, we're gonna get there.
Ugh, okay.
But let's talk about Snow and using the Hunger Games as punitive, because in our justice system we have, and I'm paraphrasing because I don't know the actual terminology, but it's like you can't be subjected to a cruel and unusual punishment.
Yes,
right?
That's correct.
So let me ask you, who determines what's cruel and unusual? Because at what point, is it possible that, I don't know, is there a judge, a counselor, or something that'd be like, yeah, that Hunger Games is fine,
Yeah, it is. I would feel so much more comfortable if this were 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Right now, arguably, the body that decides whether it's cruel and unusual is our United States Supreme Court.
Okay.
And while they seem to be making some better decisions lately, I don't agree with a lot of the decisions that they've made over the last little bit. We've talked in some of our other episodes where we're talking about government and balance of power and all of those things.
Right.
That we're a little imbalanced right now, and so it would be that same court that would make the decision of whether our president overstepped with is targeting your enemies, cruel and unusual punishment. And boy, I don't want to predict what they would maybe say these days.
So one of the other things that I did start to watch that prequel one. It's about Snow.
I haven't watched the prequel one at all.
I didn't care for it.
Okay.
But one thing I did think was interesting is in that movie, they're only about 10 years into this idea of Hunger Games. It has not become what we're going to see by the time we get to Katniss, which is like this reality TV spectacle. In some ways, like as barbaric as the Hunger Games are, the part that disturbs me the most is actually the pageantry around it.
Oh, yeah.
And everyone pretending that this is normal, and like you're trying to root for characters,
right? It's like the old Roman gladiator games.
Yeah, 100%.
It's gladiator.
Right. And them trying to, going on the talk show with Caesar.
Yeah. Which kind of has like a wrestling pre-fight vibe to it, but done maybe a little bit more.
Yeah,
with more pageant and a little bit more conservatively.
It's almost like, what if you were to take like The Bachelor or something and put it together with like UFC.
Yeah.
And just the idea of like sponsors or everything. So I guess like the Hunger Games are broadcast everywhere. I mean, using our laws here,
right?
Like, what happens if you broadcast someone murdering someone else on live TV?
The FCC would shut you down. Okay. So there are rules about what you can broadcast and what you can't broadcast. And if you're breaking those terms, we talked about this in another episode. It's the reason why there's a 7-second delay. It's the reason why for live shows, which frankly, there are a whole lot more live shows when you and I were young than there are now.
Yeah.
But if all of a sudden, on a live talk show, someone were to pull out a gun and kill somebody, the network itself has the obligation to stop it. Now, in Panem, they don't have. Not only do they not have that obligation, but this TV show is all about that. It's the Super Bowl where everyone in the country, everyone in the world, however big Panem is in this world, everyone watches it. Everyone is looking to watch it, but they're watching it knowing that somewhere between 22 and 23 kids are going to die.
Yeah.
And they're going to see it on camera. So the culture has just shifted so much.
Isn't it crazy too? I think it's the first Hunger Games movie. I watched them all like in a span of like 3 or 4 nights. So like they kind of blend a little bit. I think it's the first one where it's like they're in the Capitol and like there's like little kids running around with like their Hunger Games flags, and it's just, it reminded me of that scene of Terminator 2 where he watches the kids running around with the fake toy guns,
right?
And he's like, "We're not going to make it, are we?"
It was a really similar vibe to that. One of the closest things I've seen to that is this horse race that they have in Italy in a town called Siena, where, stand with me, they break the town up into districts. And every district has a person who rides, and it's a big horse race.
Okay.
So they're not fighting each other.
Okay.
Arguably, but it's a horse race. I
Okay.
mean, almost like a gladiator chariot kind of a race. But they're riding on the backs of horses, and getting to see a little bit of that with. The flags, they have little mascots for each one of the districts.
Sure.
So kind of this weird cross between the Hunger Games districts
and Seabiscuit.
a little bit, but then layer in your favorite sports team on top of that,
yeah.
right? So there's the Dragon District, there's the Caterpillar District, there's the Snail District, which I think you're setting yourself up for a loss there. They definitely did not get to choose their teams, But the idea of districts in Palio in Siena is similar to this, and thinking of all the little kids with their flags, and everyone comes out, and sometimes there's drama, sometimes there's cheating, sometimes somebody gets jammed into the fence, and so it was something that I was thinking about rewatching this, and especially with the scene with the flags with the kids.
Let's talk about the games themselves. So kind of what's interesting, and this is where it's like, oh yeah, sometimes you forget, especially in those scenes in District 12, that we actually are in like the far future.
Yeah.
The games themselves, they're almost in like a Truman Show type dome.
Yeah.
And the game maker, the person who designed all these booby traps and everything, is able to like, hey, if you're hiding out in this tree, I can make it so a deadly gas comes, or I can start a forest fire.
Right.
Or I can do XYZ things to make you move to make this more exciting.
Right.
So let's talk about the role of the game maker themselves.
Ugh.
Again, let's put ourselves at the end of the war. The Snow has been defeated. Coin has been defeated. We have a new government that's trying to make everything right. What are those what is the liability or culpability, I guess, of a game maker? Because even though it's not like the Hunger Games have been legalized by this government, so it's not like they're the ones that came up with it, but they are tasked with the actual kind of like,
They're facilitating the killing of the kids.
Yes,
we can just call it that.
They're not doing it.
Right.
They're just making sure it happens.
Right.
So
and, we see in the first one, and I think using that is the cleanest example, because the games maker there is not an ongoing character who's a part of a revolution, right? So I mean, he's our first example and the best example of someone who's just trying to make it interesting.
No, Seneca Wes Bentley is just trying to please Snow, really.
Right,
Yeah.
right. And we see him lighting fires to drive Katniss away from the edge of the dome because she's getting too close to the dome, and so bringing her back in, or forcing two groups of allies together to make them fight.
Right.
Which, I mean, from a producer standpoint, makes sense. I mean, things got a little boring, and maybe, you only have so much time before you lose your audience on the Hunger Games. So let's make them fight each other some more.
I was thinking about that. I was like, I wonder how long an average Hunger Game lasted. It seems like it goes on for at least like 5 to 7 days, right?
Yeah, it kind of felt like that, and
Yeah.
I don't know for sure. But then the idea that he can create mutts, right? The idea he can create dogs and sick them after people.
Let me ask you about the mutts, because
Yeah.
that's, I mean, I guess you could say it too with the tracker jacker, like the bees or
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
But it's like now we've moved into not just like starting a fire, arson to move her, but it's like now we're talking about biological warfare. So it's like at that point, it's like, is the game maker more in trouble than like had Snow lived and they were able to put Snow on trial?
Right.
Yeah.
I think that if let's say that at the end of Hunger Games 1, at the end of that, outside police force came in or whatever, arrested Snow and arrested Seneca, and now we're putting them on trial. You bet your ass Seneca's going to be as liable as Snow, if not more, because of all the things he did to make the games worse. Now, and I wouldn't defend him. If I had to defend him, I would say everyone in the whole society has agreed that this is this thing that we're going to do.
That's what I was going to say. It's like at that point, is it like, but it was legal. Like,
Right.
I didn't do anything outside of, I guess maybe this is a good time to pause and really talk about, I feel like the words war crimes get tossed out a lot, and I don't know if there's a clear understanding of like what exactly that means. The difference between our everyday laws and a war crime.
Right. Well, we just have a different set of rules that internationally we've agreed to that we're going to obey in rules of combat. We want to make sure that we're generally universally playing fair. So somebody surrenders, you need to honor that. Someone who, and it's the trial body, the governing body goes through The Hague still, and our international bodies are the ones that will make decisions about whether or not we've broken the rules of combat.
But then the Hunger Games aren't a war crime then. That's just something bad that they did in this country. The war crimes wouldn't come in until the war started, right?
Yeah, and then there's a question of, this clearly is a civil war. It's within the country of Panem,
Right.
So more alike to the our civil war, where we've got the North versus the South. You've got District 13 versus the Capitol, and then people taking sides, on each side. So I don't know that this really ends up being a war crime analysis any more than, if you go and watch the Gladiator movies, or just acknowledge the fact that Romans had the
Right.
Colosseum, that was within the same country, and they had gladiators fighting for rights and freedom, and so it is very similar to the games that were held in the Colosseum during Roman times.
So then I feel like Seneca's defense is just like this. The Hunger Games were the law. I didn't do anything outside of the law. Now, the law is bad,
Right.
but I'm not the guy you want. Snow is. 'Cause
Right.
He made the law.
Right,
You know?
right. Because if we're going to end up indicting the entire system, then everybody who participated at all, is Effie.
That's actually one of our fan questions that I'll just throw out right now.
Yeah.
How culpable is Effie, Caesar? Even to a point like Haymitch,
Yeah.
because he is part of the rebellion, but at least for that first movie, he's just playing the game
Right.
the best he can,
Right.
Or even someone like, I know he's dead, but like Cinna, Lenny
Right.
Kravitz, my favorite character.
Right.
Even though he was killed, it was like he was always there to support Katniss, but he's technically part of that system,
Right.
You know?
And I think we just can't separate out. It was such a part of the culture and such a part of not just the government, not just the rules, but it was a part of every aspect of the culture. It's almost impossible to find a parallel that really fits the exact same thing. Cinna did a great job of dressing and coaching Katniss. I think Sin is the least culpable. Haymitch, drunk as he is, played brilliantly. Again, Haymitch is giving strategy to Katniss and trying to keep her alive. A similar Haymitch, maybe in District 1, we don't get to see that part of it, but the coaches and trainers in District 1 are, again, just trying to keep their people alive,
Right.
but their people are bad and they're trying to kill everybody else,
Right.
but everybody's trying to kill everybody else.
Right. That's the
So, I just talked myself in a circle there about it. And that's, I think, my point is that I think that the person that's controlling the games has the most amount of culpability, but you're right. You could just say, well, that's what I was told to do. And now you add one more set of legal analysis to the Nuremberg trials, which is, that I was just following Hitler's orders and I did some horrible, terrible things and gassed a bunch of people and made horrible decisions. They were still held accountable.
But that's for a war crime, which we have now established this most likely isn't as terrible as it is.
Agreed.
Yeah.
And that's one of the many distinguishing factors. But every time I go to say that Seneca was just following orders from President Snow, we don't like hearing those words because of the Nuremberg trials.
Right.
So we have universally rejected the I was just following orders.
It's just a tricky distinction to make because legally it sounds like it's not a war. It's the Hunger Games, which at some point were made legal.
Right.
I mean, I guess like true justice would be to legally outlaw the Hunger Games. That's about as much. Now, I'm not talking about morally, and I'm not talking about rebellion and fighting and everything. I'm just talking about like in the legal system. I don't know. Could you hold anyone really responsible if that was the law? All you could really do is just change the law, right?
Well, think about it this way. If we were in a position that you made it all volunteer, right? All volunteer. Now you have a fictional show where people are actually fighting,
right?
Where we are trying to make it as dangerous as possible. There will be deaths. Everyone who participates is willing. I mean, now we're talking about it's a sport rather than a crime or a tribute or anything along those lines. That's more like Running Man as a story or a movie or a game. If anybody's seen that with Arnold Schwarzenegger, I think a new one just came
with
out.
Glenn Powell, yeah.
Yeah, and so the idea of people fighting voluntarily changes the analysis quite a bit.
I want to talk about the victors for just a minute. Obviously, winning the Hunger Games means, okay, like...
You think. Right.
We find out that, Haymitch won, but now he's stuck in this life of mentorship. The victors are also... They have to go around and do all these propaganda roles. And really darkly, I don't even think I picked this up the first time. I didn't notice it until this time. Finnick says, they basically, prostituted us out.
Yeah.
And if you didn't, they went after your family.
Right.
So are these victors, is this pretty much like enslavement?
I absolutely think it's enslavement. I mean, they are... I think once the moment that they become tributes, they are slaves and they are stuck in the system. And that promo that Finnick does during Mockingjay, I heard that with very different ears this time around. I kind of remembered him talking about some of those things. He talks about Snow. He talks about poison. He talks about Snow's rise to power. That whole promo that he did is, it was designed to try to jam the comm systems.
Buy time, yeah.
But the things that he said were chilling. I mean, chilling doesn't even come close. I mean, they were horrifying to listen to how his experience as a victor was, and it puts new light on it. I mean, we knew Haymitch doesn't like being a victor, and Haymitch is drunk all the time, and Haymitch is only reluctantly there, and whatever. But you don't think about, Finnick's experience.
I mean, they all suffer PTSD horribly, and then you kind of understand more like after that speech, like, yeah, Haymitch probably did turn to alcohol to just try to numb a lot of this or forget a lot of this.
Yeah.
But yeah, it seems like the Capitol owns you once you are a victor. I mean, we even saw like brainwashing PETA.
Right.
So PETA, they use PETA as a propaganda tool once, he's captured and Katniss has joined the rebellion at this point.
Right.
And he's brainwashed. I mean, we see this with like cult leaders all the time.
Right. And like Manchurian Candidate. And
right.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like,
he's programmed.
I mean, that itself is like, what crime is brainwashing? And how do you prove brainwashing, by the way?
Yeah, I mean, you just need the records and other witnesses in order to establish what actually happened. They talk about how he was injected with venom and tortured.
Right.
So we wonder how, I mean, from a legal standpoint, how do we know that he was injected with, Tracker Jacker venom and tortured? Well, we got to believe somebody in the Capitol, somebody who was there, told them. And so it's like any other kind of a crime. We have witnesses who testify as to what happened. We have witnesses who testify that is the person that stole, beer from the liquor store, or whatever. So it's the same kind of evidence that we would see in any other type of case. But it's again, this level of programming and this level of torture that PETA was put through, it's torture, it's poisoning, it's all of those things that are just some of the worst crimes that you can commit on somebody.
I don't know if he lost a bunch of weight or if they CG'd, but like you can tell in his face when he does those videos.
Oh, yeah.
He is very unhealthy.
I did not go check because I didn't want to break myself out of my suspension of disbelief, but I don't know if that's the first movie that used that CG, shrinking, like Captain America type shrink with Chris Evans kind of shrinking.
I mean, they got it by that point. I don't think so, but it had refined, right?
Right.
Because the other one I think of is Robert Downey Jr. at the very beginning of Endgame.
Oh, for sure.
Where they shrunk him down and he looks sickly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, but the effects on PETA were amazing. I think you saw it to some extent with Joanna as well.
More just saying like that physical proof, I guess. It's like, well, look at him before and look at his body now. You know?
Yeah. And I found myself at first, I think the first time Katniss ever sees him and he's just not looking so great, she has a complete come apart and breakdown for it. I was like, he just looks like he's trimmed down like just a little bit. She's like she's having a complete, and then like you see him next time, and his eyes are sunken and he just keeps looking worse and worse.
Do you think he's legally responsible for that person that ends up dying when they kind of go into the Capitol in Mockingjay Part 2 and all that? Was it tar or lava or something? And his programming kicks in, tries to attack Katniss. One of the members of their team, the unfortunate red shirt, gets killed. Like, do you think he's legally responsible for that?
If I had to defend him, I would argue that it's part of his programming, mental illness, and we've talked a lot about how I work with people who have mental illness, who hear voices in their head and are not responsible for everything that they do. It's hard to say with PETA because it wasn't an attack on Katniss. I think the attack on Katniss in the hospital at the end of Mockingjay Part 1 is very clearly a programmed attack. PETA just seems to continue to lose his cool and somebody else gets caught in the crossfire. So yes.
I mean, does it help his case that he's like, when he's lucid, he's like, you have to tie me up. Yeah, I can't.
It does. And it shows that he is acknowledging that he's out of control, but just all of that's so tough.
Yeah.
And watching it again, I don't know that I wanted more PETA story. I wasn't like by the end of the movie thinking, wow, I wanted more PETA. But I also, I don't know. I don't know that I understood the reprogramming so much.
It almost felt like it just had to wear off.
Yeah, which
there's just so much story that I felt like they just they're like, I did like the runner of like true or not true. I thought that
real,
was
not
that
real.
was, or real, not real.
Yeah,
sorry.
yeah.
I thought that was really great. And
and it was good for the story and everything
right.
too.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit like Dark Knight Rises, where it's just like, here, hang on to this thing. I'll crack your back, and you'll be fine in like a week.
Right. Right.
Just stand up and like when the plot needs you to, and then we'll move on. 'Cause it's you just have to assume that eventually, he was able to overcome it. But lastly, kind of here that I want to talk about is, we've talked about the Hunger Games, and now we're getting into the rebellion, right? So we do find out that District 13 is a real place. It's all underground. Felt very like Matrix Reloaded-y to me, like Zion.
Agreed. Yeah.
We find out that in Catching Fire, Haymitch is part of this rebellion, and this was all a setup to get Katniss out of there.
Right.
The great Plutarch, Philip Seymour Hoffman, who passed away, unfortunately, while they were making this. They said that there were like 2 scenes that he didn't finish. And obviously one of them, and it's so jarring, but I totally understand, is that last scene where Haymitch comes in. He's like, I have a note from Plutarch. And you're like, I get it.
Yeah.
The other one that I was like, I think I know which one it is. It's when Katniss goes to talk to those people on the train from, was it District 2? And Haymitch is with her. I'm pretty sure that was supposed to be Plutarch.
Yeah.
His lines don't quite, it's like, why would you be telling her this? You know? Regardless, great character. I love that.
I really like him.
I didn't see that twist coming the first time I saw it, that he's part of the rebellion. I also love that he is the most North Star moral of all of this. Let's talk about, is any rebellion ever legal? I know we talked about this a little bit in Andor, but I really want to know, like, is what they were doing considered, like, is it just like this has to be illegal and or else it's not a rebellion,
Right. Well, specifically in Hunger Games, we know the District 13 was bombed to oblivion, and everyone believes District 13 is gone, completely
for
gone,
years,
completely gone.
Yeah.
And I'm not 100% sure, but it sounds like pre-Hunger Games, District 13 is gone. So it's been 75 years that all these people have been living underground, and they've been, which also explains a bit about their mindset and where they are on things. But your question was specifically, is rebellion legal? And it depends on where you go for your authority to something like that. Yeah. And so what is District 13 doing? They're existing even though they're supposed to all be dead. They don't like the government, and it's because the government wiped out all of their ancestors and everything else. So, I mean, and I get the sense that they're still within this country of Panem as well. So, there's nothing wrong with surviving when the government thinks that you're dead. There's nothing wrong with not liking the government that killed your parents. There's nothing wrong with a whole lot of that. There shouldn't be anything wrong with speaking out. And so the Propo videos and hey, guess what? We're still alive 75 years later, and now we've built an entire society, and you should watch your mouth when you say negative things about District 13. All of those things, I would argue none of that really crosses a line.
I would only disagree with you on the Propo videos, because it's not like, hey, don't mess with us. I think it's, hey, we're coming for you.
Right.
And that is a threat.
Right. Let's go back. Let's try to reset the United States of America and not put it in today.
Sure.
Let's say that someone from let's think of the least threatening state, Iowa. Iowans,
Congratulations, Iowa. You're the least threatening.
Iowans, welcome to the show. We're glad to have you on board. And Iowa says to Ronald Reagan in the middle of his presidency, "We don't like you and we're coming for you." Now, if it's a threat against the president, it's a crime. You're not allowed to threaten the president. If it is, "We don't like you," well then, tough cookies, right? And Ronald Reagan would probably get on the TV and do a national conference saying, "Iowa, we love you and it'll be okay, and you shouldn't say things like that," like the beautiful, wonderful grandpa that he was, right? Ronald Reagan did some things that politically I don't necessarily agree with, but I'm trying to put us back in a Republican president in the 40 years ago where that was what we believed and what we thought. If Iowa had a list of grievances that were so long and so serious that they wanted to secede from the United States, now you're looking at, where does the law say it's okay or not okay? And our Declaration of Independence actually says that we have a duty if we believe our list of grievances. So, I mean, there were a lot of people that posted in comments over our last several videos. We've had this theme on a couple of shows, certainly with Andor, that, just saying you don't like it's not enough. Right. So, it so depends on what you're using for your legal authority. Let's switch it up one more. If Hawaii just decided, you know what, peace out, U.S. We're not really feeling it. We're going to be the island nation of Hawaii. I'm not. I mean, obviously, we wouldn't be happy about that. But I don't know what. And folks at home, show me where I'm wrong. I don't know what stops Hawaii from just seceding. I'm
sure there's got to be some sort
there's
of
got to be a law
or something
or a rule.
Yeah.
But I mean, if 95% of people in Hawaii said we're forming our own nation, I don't know that that's a crime necessarily. I don't think our current government would allow it. I think that would be all kinds of,
that's what I'm saying,
civil war and all kinds of problems and everything like that.
I don't think you can just leave the party.
We're ready to be done. Puerto Rico, we're just ready to be done. We're tired of being disrespected. We're out. And I don't know what the law is that stops a state or a territory from just deciding to leave.
So let's talk about the ending of this movie, of Mockingjay Part 2.
Oh.
So a lot happens here that we need to talk about. So finally the rebellion, they're about to storm the Capitol, right? And Snow is building basically a human shield. He's like, everybody, women, children, kids, come to my house.
Come to my house. Come to protect me.
Come to my house.
We're going to keep you right at the gates.
So then we see bombs drop, and these are the same type of carriers that we had seen in the Hunger Games.
Yeah.
And Snow has bombed all his own people. Katniss's sister's dead, and all these medics come in, and then the second bomb goes off.
Right.
And
it's the second bomb that kills
the second bomb that kills
Katniss's
sister.
Yeah.
And at that point, even people that were loyal to Snow said, well, now you're bombing us too. We're done. They lost in that moment.
Right.
But what we find out is that
Yes.
Katniss goes to talk to a captured Snow, and he said, I didn't bomb them, and I've never lied to you. That their relationship is like, we will say the most horrible stuff to each other, but we're never going to lie.
Right.
He said, Coin did. Your rebel leader made it look like I bombed my own people because that was the only way that my own people were going to turn against me.
Right.
And it was true.
Yeah.
So Katniss goes to this meeting that Coin has set up with all the other victors, and she's like, I'm going to take over the presidency. I don't think we're ready for an election yet.
Right.
And Snow warned her. He's like, she's not about the rebellion. She just wants to take my place. That's all.
Right.
It's just going to be the same thing. And Coin's like, the Capitol must pay for what they've done.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to do a Hunger Games with the Capitol's children now. And, you know, PETA's like, absolutely, we're not doing this again. So Katniss deceives them. She says, sure, we can do a Hunger Games with the Capitol kids only if I'm the one that gets to kill
Right.
Snow. So then they set up this big in the Capitol public execution of Snow. He's all tied up. Katniss aims her bow right at Snow, but at the last minute turns, shoots Coin's dead. The crowd comes, takes out Snow in a
Yeah.
mob. We assume that they just kill him.
Rip him to pieces.
Literally rip him to shreds.
Yeah.
Katniss is imprisoned. And then Haymitch comes in with the letter from Plutarch that's like, you did the right thing. I can't be seen with you for political reasons right now. There's going to be a new president, and it's one of the district leaders we had seen earlier who seemed very level-headed.
Yeah.
And she's going to pardon you, most likely. It's a little bit of a hand wave, and I do think, unfortunately, with Philip Seymour Hoffman passing, it kind of had to be a hand wave. But I just want to ask, like, Katniss is privy to this information that Coin, now we are in a war, did a massive war crime, was about to essentially, you know, do the same type of inhumane things again. Like, does she have any legal justification for what she did in that square?
No, she doesn't.
Really? Okay.
Yeah,
Interesting.
legally she doesn't. You and I have gotten into arguments about this before about, you know, well, he just killed me. Can I kill him back? You know,
the Beetlejuice,
the Beetlejuice episode.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, and you know, our laws about taking somebody else's life lawfully are that they, in that moment, need to be presenting an immediate, imminent threat to another person, not like a threat later, not a threat before, not, oh, they're planning on killing, 100 people later, so we're going to take them out. Our lawful justifications for killing a person, right, are that. Now, we do have different rules when it comes to potentially taking out, assassinating another like terrorist leader, like the people, the SEALs that took out Osama bin Laden were not prosecuted. Were not even seen as bad guys.
No,
they took out somebody who did something horrible, who was a world leader, who, arguably needed to be taken out.
Sure.
So the difference between Katniss in that moment and our military that took out Osama bin Laden is another country. I mean, that's one distinguishing factor.
The problem is, for the most part, Katniss, maybe Plutarch, are the only two people that have the full knowledge of what happened.
Right.
Like,
and arguably Gale.
Arguably,
right?
Arguably Gale. But
because
he's not in that room with them when they vote for the Hunger Games.
He's not
right?
in the room when they vote, but
his plan.
I kept the whole time like wondering, wait a minute, I remember that Katniss gets back with PETA and they're all traumatized together back in the house. I remembered that. But how is she turning away from Gale? Because he's so darn cool.
Right.
And it was that moment where she asked him straight out, you said you set this up. This was a second level. This is exactly what you were talking about back in the military room that you thought was okay. Did you know? Are you involved with this? This killed my sister. My sister was a medic. Are you involved with this? This was also exactly the strategy that was used in 9/11, right? Bomb one building, send all of the first responders in, and then bomb the second building so that you kill all the first responders on top of all that. That's exactly what happened at the end of Hunger Games, at the end of Mockingjay. And all of those things, I think the only way you get Katniss off the hook for killing Coin, which, by the way, she should have done. I agree that she should have done. I was glad that she did. I had kind of forgotten that that's how it all had worked out because I'd only seen it the one time. But I agree that she should have done it. I agree that she was right to do it. But I think my only legal, ethical justification for that would be if I somehow was able to say that President Coyne, illegally interim President Coyne, was the equivalent of an Osama bin Laden or a Hitler or someone along those lines.
But again, to my point, here's the problem. If you are legal counsel, you don't know. I mean, I guess Katniss could tell you, like, that bombing was her and her idea.
Right.
You can't prove it.
Right.
So really all you have to go off of is exactly what you saw.
Right. I mean, here's what I think puts it in the clearest context. What if she got bad intel? She didn't. We know she didn't. We know she acted on correct intel. That's the story and everything else. But what if Snow was wrong?
And it was just one last manipulation by him?
Right.
Yeah.
What if that was the case? And what if Snow telling her a series of stories using the fact that we always tell the truth to each other was able to get Coyne killed by Katniss, and he was able to manipulate Katniss to kill her? Indefensible. Right? I mean, she was told a bunch of information. She thought she was really bad, but still we don't have a legal justification for it. What then smooths it all over is the acknowledgement by the level-headed, smarter elected president and the new ruling government that they are going to go ahead and say, we know. There may not be a legal justification. We're going to pardon you, which means they were prosecuting her. You know, we're going to forgive that because it was the right thing to do. But that is not a legal justification. That is we're going to do things because we know that you did something for the right reasons at the right time and all of that.
Two thoughts. One is, from a filmmaking perspective, I 100% think that's why that council scene exists, is so that you, the viewer, know that Snow is not lying. Right. Or else there's no way, like, you'd be like, no, he's just trying to do exactly what you just said.
Yeah.
Two, the movie, I don't know about the book, but the movie never makes it clear if she's being pardoned because she did the right thing or if she's being pardoned because she was so instrumental as the Mockingjay and all this happening that it's like, we don't condone what you did, but you've done so much service that it's almost like a dishonorable discharge. Like, we're pardoning you, but you're kind of exiled now to your district, even though it seems like Katniss exiles herself. It's never made 100% clear.
Yeah. Well, and I think the way that it's written is that they don't have to make it 100% clear because she doesn't want to stick around and be a part of the ruling government.
No.
She wants to go and
home.
try to find some peace. And then on top of all of that, we've got Coyne who deserved it, and the new ruling government acknowledges that she deserved it. I definitely get that from the story. I think that she is pardoned because they know that she did them the biggest favor ever and set Panem on the right course. I can't believe I'm sitting there, justifying the assassination of a leader, but
I'd be interested. I know we're a legal show, but I'd be interested to talk to like a political analyst to see, like, politically, to me, it seems like it would be not the best idea to be like, well, Katniss was right because this person was bad, because that opens the door for any decision that you disagree with.
Right.
You're gonna, like, I would think almost politically it'd be like, she did a horrible thing. We're not sure why. We're pardoning her because of every good thing that she did, but she's out of here.
Right.
Even if I didn't believe that, that's the story.
Well, and it could have gone that way. I know we always talk about how we have the same legal education.
That's true.
I do also have a master's in political science in
I
between
didn't know
the
that.
law degree.
I did not know that.
At our alma mater, Cal State Fullerton.
I think I might have seen you in passing once.
So.
When I was in fourth grade.
Right, exactly. Your trip to campus to get some Carl's Jr. or something. But I think it could have gone one of two ways, right? It could have been we need to show that we're not going to allow this type of thing to happen in our new society.
Right.
Versus you saved us because nobody could have taken her down. If she had come to power and she had finished that inauguration scene and you had killed Snow, she would have been untouchable.
Which the movie makes clear
Definitely
that's exactly what would have happened.
Yeah.
It's just, it's hard to know what other characters know about that.
Yeah.
One thing that's interesting too is like we find out that Gale stays back and he's helping kind of, lead the, but I mean, dude, he had the bad idea. Like legally, shouldn't Gale be in just as much trouble as anyone else that survived? Any game maker or anything like.
Well, it depends on whether Gale was actually part of that circle to make the decision,
or if Coin just took his idea.
Exactly.
Yeah. I guess. I mean, there's that moment where she's like, was this you, Gale? And he's like, I hope not. There does seem to be a little bit of.
But it's hard. It was hard for me to tell whether or not it was I hope not versus, as a response, as a legal response. Maybe it was. Maybe it wasn't. Hard to say, but I did think it was fascinating just looking at Gale's character from the good, solid, I'm protecting everyone to see how war and tragedy and the wiping out of his entire district changed him fundamentally.
Yeah. Let's get to the fan questions now. We've already taken a couple within the body of the show, but this is another one where it's like, I feel like you're going to say your answer might have been different a while ago. Jordan asks, could Snow legally punish an entire district for one person's rebellion? Can you punish a whole state for,
So could Snow do it?
Well,
could it happen here?
Two different questions.
Yeah. I don't know that they're two different questions. I mean, here's the thing. It's no big secret that Governor Newsom here in California, where we live,
the first thing I thought
is continually egging on President Trump. Their social media is absolutely on fire, trying to duplicate his tone and talking about the huge developments and everything else. Newsom goes to the global climate summit in Brazil, where the Trump administration refuses to go, sets himself up as a world leader. And what happened to specifically District 12, not District 13, what happened to District 12 is something that I think about all the time.
Yeah.
I'm worried about that because our president has said that he is going to punish his enemies. And do I think he's going to nuke California off the map? No, I don't. God, I hope not. I don't
think so.
I don't think that is what we're looking at. But the thought has definitely crossed my mind that what are we going to do? Like the military supports their commander in chief. So what exactly do we? I mean, we have a National Guard here in California, but I don't know. You can tell that I've thought about this and worried about this, and I don't have a clear answer. When we have a sitting president who says he will punish his enemies who don't believe in the same things he believes in, I don't know what we're looking at here in this country.
Let's take this one from Priya. We were just talking about this, but maybe we can just put a fine point on it. Could Gale be held legally responsible for Prim's death? It's his plan. But as we said, we don't know that he was the one that executed it, that called for it. I mean, we can say fairly definitively that Coin at least authorized and called for it.
Yeah.
We don't know if like Gale was like, this is the way you win. But
right. But it was his plan. He talked about it. He and Katniss argued about it.
Mm-hmm.
I think the answer to Priya's question is completely dependent on whether or not Gale was in a position that he was a military commander calling shots, sitting in those war councils, because we don't know who was in the room when Coin came up with this plan.
Sure.
We don't know if Plutarch was in the room. We don't know if Gale was in the room.
What's Jeffrey Wright's character's name? Like BT or
yeah,
something?
BD?
Yeah,
BD.
He also seemed like he was fine with this play because he was the one talking to Gail about it.
Right,
so.
right. And so, yeah, it's hard to say who was in the know. If Gail came to President Coyne and said, I have this idea, I think it'll be brilliant, and by the way, I think this will be the last domino that will erode the last of Snow's support amongst his own people and allow you to take over, I would say yes, Gail's responsible. I think that short of that, it's hard to say how far up in that chain or in the circle of trust or anything like that he is. I would hold everybody in the room in the circle of trust responsible for Prim's death. I would hold everybody who was in the room who said thumbs up on that decision. If they all just said, President Coyne, we leave it up to you, here's all the analysis, that's one thing. But I gotta believe, I mean, as much as I love Plutarch and Philip Seymour Hoffman, I can't believe Plutarch wasn't in on that final decision.
Let me ask you this. I don't know if this is an apt simile or if it's like a apples to oranges, but could you say, at least in the defense of Gail, it would be somewhat similar to like, well, did you blame Oppenheimer when they dropped those bombs,
Right.
you know, in Hiroshima, you know?
Right. And it really is him creating an idea. In the worst case scenario, it's him creating an idea. It certainly wasn't him actually physically dropping the bombs. I think morally and ethically, he's super responsible. I think legally, that's probably where they're going to draw a distinction.
We went through most of these questions already, but this last one is it's something we haven't really talked about yet. Another aspect of everyday citizens being involved with the Hunger Games. Omar asks, would the sponsorship system violate modern gambling laws? So if you want to, if you're not familiar, one of the things is the reason why they doll up all of these, tributes and get them like really as personalities before the games begin is like, if you're really invested in Katniss, you can kind of send a gift, a super chat, that helps her out in the games. Mm-hmm. Omar makes an interesting point, like take all the morality out of it. If people are betting on the Hunger Games, but these sponsors are shifting the reality of the games or shifting the nature of it, like would that violate gambling laws? Or you're tampering with the game, essentially? You're
tampering with the game.
Unless it's part of the game.
I would say no.
Okay.
I don't think it does. And I think we have set up this game system where you've got a game master who can make poison gas appear or make an entire forest light on fire. And I don't see the sponsors who can send, a little magic potion to heal a burn or, some extra arrows or something along those lines as significant as what's being done by the game master. So I would say no. I don't think it violates gambling laws.
Okay. We're at the end of the show now, and as we talked about on Wicked, we're altering how we do this.
Okay.
It's not would you take the case, because you're just too nice.
I am too nice.
I think the question is there a case there? Or would you be like, I've got nothing, I can't really do anything for you. So let's start with President Snow.
Oh.
Let's assume he's been captured. He was not assassinated or beat to death or whatever happened to him, right? Is there any defense of what he had done in his presidency that you could possibly see if you were forced to be his lawyer? Or is it like, there's nothing I can really do for you, man?
Right. I think the first part of my analysis always goes back to backstory, which would require me to watch that movie that you said wasn't very good. Mm-hmm. So I might need to do that. Just now, because now I'm kind of curious. I'm curious as to how that develops him. I'm also, though, remembering Finnick's rendition of his backstory, right? That he just poisoned every single person who was a threat to him all the way through to rise to
Which
power.
is pretty much how the movie ends.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. And then you layer in not just the fact that he's ruling within a system, but he decides to take it so personal and then has it out for this girl, this young girl. I mean, yeah, we see her as Katniss Everdeen, the Mockingjay, but she's not more than 18 years old. I mean, she's a young girl. I don't remember in the books if she was 16 when she started or when it was.
Right,
but
we should also just note real quick. President Snow was not the person who developed the Hunger Games.
Agreed. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
No.
is not something that he set up. Just
Right.
just for the viewers at home.
Right.
Yeah.
And so him working within that system, that part of it, there's a defense to that because it's been in place for so long and he's working within an existing system that's corrupt and arguably there's a lot of people that do that. I think where Snow crosses the line and is indefensible is in his cruelty and in creating the quarter quell to bring back all the victors and changing the rules of the game to that extent and doing all of these
Kills his game maker.
He's irredeemable. He's designed to be irredeemable, and no matter how much sympathy we might end up, I had a little bit of sympathy when he's in that rose garden at the end having his final conversation with Katniss.
I didn't.
Like, just a little bit. I'm like, oh, this is a defeated, broken man who's acknowledged that he lost. But no,
Just no case, really.
Yeah, but no. I
Okay,
mean, he's good for the assassination. I mean, he is somebody who needs to be assassinated as a corrupt, illegal, vile, evil former world leader.
So then let's do Seneca, his first game maker.
Yeah.
Assuming Seneca was not poisoned, and in the most cruel way possible, where it's not like he was tricked into being poisoned. He's like, "There's the poison. Whenever you're ready, just go ahead and take those berries."
Right.
But for making those games, at least the first game, and we have to assume he's probably been the game maker for a couple years.
Yeah, we didn't get the sense that it was his first game maker.
Right. So, if he had lived in this new place, like, do you have a case? I would think maybe just like
I think maybe it could, because in the same way that we're talking about the extra steps above and beyond, we do punish even law enforcement for going above and beyond what's called for, in a situation. If law enforcement beats the heck out of somebody or shoots somebody multiple times or those sorts of things, we do hold our members of government responsible if they exceed their authority. And while you could make the argument that Seneca is a really good games maker and he was great at it and so he was just really, really, really good at his job, I think the exceeding of going way above and beyond just creating a games and being that level of cruel and manipulative would make it somebody not only would I not defend, but I think he's good for some crimes.
What about kind of lumping them all together, because they're kind of ancillary players, but like your Effie, your Caesar, your Cinna, people who were a part of the system, not necessarily instrumental in making the system work or implementing the worst parts of it, but they're involved.
Right. I think defending them is are they in a position where they should they have objected? Yes. I mean, there are people that believe that anyone that's complacent in a corrupt system is just as liable. And I'm sure we have some folks that are watching this show that feel that way. And I understand that. I think if I'm really going to pull back from a legal standpoint, Effie's a hairdresser. Cinna's a wardrobe specialist. Caesar is a game show host. So I mean, it's not like they are sinister. They're dumb and working in a system. I think Effie's character, especially, even though I know Cinna's your favorite and acknowledge because Cinna's amazing.
I mean, it's funny because in the first Hunger Games movie, I got the wrong impression about how up in the chain Effie was because she's the one that goes to the reaping and pulls. But really, yeah, she's not connected.
But by the time you see her, she's explaining everything to everyone. But you see her as someone who is just doing her best to have a role and have a positive spin on things. And does that make her complacent? Yes. Does that make her responsible morally? Yes. But legally, no. I think this group of people that you're talking about are defensible.
Let's go to Gale. We've talked at length now about whether or not he is responsible for kind of that last push. But does Gale, if he was put on trial for that bombing, because essentially they bombed their own people.
Right.
They bombed a bunch of kids.
Right.
And you're defending Gale specifically. Do you think the case is more like, well, he's just a soldier. It's Coin who's the perpetrator.
Yeah, I think you said it perfectly. I think Gale being just a soldier makes a difference, and then you layer in the fact of his character development, which is maybe arguably one of the most interesting developments because he's this stalwart hero taking care of the family and all of that. But then you go to that propaganda video where he describes them being firebombed as they ran away and the shift that makes for him. I've worked with veterans who have had that kind of a shift and a break because of something that happened in combat. And it changes their view of things. We can't appreciate being hyper vigilant every single time we drive a car because we're afraid that we're going to hit an IED and our car is going to blow up and flip upside down. But there are people who, because of their circumstances, have had to go through things that they feel that much. I mean, I think that Gale is also, a victim of all of that PTSD and trauma from seeing his entire people just completely wiped out.
Yeah.
And while there's no question that he steps over the line, and there's no question I hold him responsible for what happened, and I hold him responsible for the idea of that gamesmanship military strategy that I think is despicable. There is an element there that Gale got broken. And I think that plays into the defense of Gale.
Okay, lastly, let's talk about Katniss. She broke a ton of laws, but arguably by the end, those capital laws kind of doesn't make that big of a difference. I think really with her, the big thing is that assassination of Coin.
Right.
I think ultimately that's the only thing she'd be left on the hook for. Do you think if you're her defense, I mean, it sounds like, let's assume she wasn't just immediately going to be pardoned. There was going to be a trial. Think you had a case?
Yeah, I think I do in the same way that the death of Osama bin Laden was lawful. I think that I keep going back to that as the justification, the legal justification for Katniss. Morally, there's no question she made the right decision. Ethically, there's no question she made the right decision. And she saved she literally with that one shot saved all of Panem.
Well, she broke the cycle.
Right,
the cycle
exactly.
That would have been the third or fourth generation of it.
Right. And I think in my defense of Katniss, yes. Yep. She killed a sitting interim president. That's absolutely against the law. Agreed. And I just go straight out for jury nullification and let's talk about why. And I would just put as much of the evidence about what she did and how she did it and what was going on behind it. Now, arguably, the trouble would be getting the evidence for that.
I was going to say, how do you prove?
That's the hard thing. We know that Plutarch's still around. And we know that Plutarch definitely has affection for Katniss. We know that Plutarch is happy that Coin is gone. Plutarch might be my star witness. I still believe in my heart that Plutarch was in the room where it all happened. And so getting Plutarch immunity as well from the new president of District 8. I think she was in District 8. Yeah, I think that's the key to defending Katniss, and I have no doubt in my mind that once that story's developed, that I would get her off the hook 100%. She did the right thing, and I would just have to convince 12 people that she did.
Yeah, just a chilling tale. I think it's expertly told. These are dark stories. There's not a lot of humor. Barely any humor in these stories.
Right.
We end on what I feel is a very realistic kind of ending for that type of story, which is all this war, this rebellion being the center of all of this, and then just trying to find peace. They both seem like they're still very broken people at the end who are just trying to make the best life for their kids at that point.
And that's what I think is, to me, the thing I respect the most about this story is that there's so much of this that is battle and valor and glory, and so many other similar stories that are all about that. But like Andor, we see in this entire Hunger Games story the real effects of the battle, of the drama, of the trauma, of all of it. It's not like they just get on horses and ride away into the sunset at the end. They're broken.
Or that everything's fixed.
Right.
You know?
And it's still not 100%. Not fixed with them, not fixed with the country, not fixed with anything.
I mentioned it at the beginning, but it does kind of remind me a lot of like Frodo in Lord of the Rings, where it's like you do this huge battle, you defeat evil, but you come back home and you're not the same. Home is the same, but you're not.
Right,
you know, and it
right.
feels like Katniss and Peeta have kind of come to grips with like, we're never going to be the same again. We're probably always going to wake up in the middle of the night with nightmares, but at least we have each other.
Right.
You know?
And there's a line at the very end where she says, one day, it says to her baby, one day I'll tell you why.
Yeah.
You know, and I appreciate that.
Great set of movies. I really like. If you're on the fence, well, I'm surprised you watched this long.
Right.
But it really does not deserve that kind of YA stigma. This is very relevant stuff. I think this is a much more relevant and timely story now than when these movies came out. I think they have aged magnificently.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, definitely check it out. Just like an old Thanksgiving tradition, you know, watch this story of rebellion and PTSD and then go be with your family for Thanksgiving.
There
right?
we go.
Well, if you want to check out more Doug Defends while you're getting that turkey ready, that stuffing ready, we're right here on the YouTube channel. Lots of other episodes. Also, if you can't sit and watch us, but you can listen on your phone or your ears, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcast, Doug Defense is there. I am Billy Business. That is Doug Ridley. Yeah, may the odds be ever